welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager, and we're back again to talk about the Telluride Film Festival. This is part two with Hayley, Ringle, and Ernie Quiroz. Welcome to the show, Ernie and Hayley.
Hello.
Yeah, great to have you both back again. So last episode we talked about the Telluride Film Festival and some of your favorite films you saw there, but you guys saw so much good stuff and we were having such a great conversation, just chatting back and forth through texting that I thought, well, let's make it a two-parter. In part because Hayley said, I really want to talk about all these documentaries I saw. And I know they also did a tribute to Werner Herzog this year, so we're going to talk about that. So there sounds like it was pretty, despite the fact on the previous episode you said it wasn't a star-studded event. Yeah, we did. It sounded like there was a lot of interesting smaller films as well. So why don't you both hold up your Werner Herzog signs and tell us about, you got yours, Hayley? Yeah, so everyone in the theater got those, right?
So I don't know if
Oh,
you
it
can
was
see
his
that,
80th birthday. Wow. He's
or I
getting
don't know
up
if it's going
there.
to be backwards or whatever. So yeah, so September 5th, the Monday of the festival. September 5th is Herzog's birthday. So that Monday, it was basically Werner Herzog Day. So one of the theaters there, the theater that I'm fortunate enough that I get to work at, is called the Werner Herzog Theater. It's basically an hockey rink that they convert into the 600-seat theater. And so that day it was back to back to back, three films about or by Werner Herzog. So the first film of the day was called Radical Dreamer. It's directed by Thomas von Steinaecker, if I say his name right. And it's basically a documentary about Werner and sort of his work. And it was the world premiere of that film. The film then went on to play Toronto, played a couple other festivals. And then the other two films were documentaries by Werner, which Hayley can kind of talk more about that. But the first film, Radical Dreamer, sort of served as sort of a nice overview of Werner and his career. I think if you're not familiar with Werner, or if you're maybe just a little, if you only know a couple of his films, this is sort of a good overview of his, whatever 60 plus year career. And I don't even know how many movies he's made. And from his early days in Berlin, in Germany, and making films sort of during the tail end of the Cold War, to now becoming like this weird pop culture sort of this icon that's in Star Wars and Simpsons, and sort of such a distinctive voice. Then he's almost become a parody of himself, and he's just almost famous for becoming famous. And there's people that know him, don't even know his movies, or don't even know, they don't know his old movies, the black and white movies,
They
and
know his
maybe
voice, yeah.
they know his voice, or maybe they know Grizzly Man. So he's got like all these different levels of fans of his older fans, the newer fans, and people that watch Star Wars. So he's an amazing guy. He's a great character, and it's a fun little film to sort of find out everything you want to know about Werner. And so at the screening, it was 9 a.m. This is on the Monday. Everyone in the theater got these little signs, and we all sang happy birthday to him. And it was a fun way to kick off Werner Herzog Day.
Mm-hmm. No, we got to see this documentary, Hayley and I, and I'm curious to hear what Hayley says. But what was surprising about it, and kind of funny, and on a previous episode, I just reviewed the Bowie documentary, if you can call it that, which is not really a documentary, really, in a lot of ways, but is very non-conventional, which is actually the kind of documentaries Herzog often makes. Is he doesn't make your typical type of documentaries, and this movie about him is a very typical documentary. It really starts from like, here's his childhood, and here's what got him into filmmaking, and they interview actors who have been in his films, and his brothers, which actually I thought some of the stuff with his family was the most interesting, because I'm pretty familiar with his work. I've seen almost all of his films, believe it or not, even a lot of his shorts. And I've even seen Even Dwarves Started Small, which I think is one of his worst films, and they show some clips from that in the documentary. And that one's really hard to sit through, especially if you're an animal lover. So I'll just warn people about that. But I've seen most of his films over the years, and so I think for someone like me, the movie wasn't as interesting as a documentary because I already knew a lot of it. But it was interesting to see, especially the stuff with his brothers, and kind of talking about his career and the way it's gone, and how much happier he is in LA than he was in Germany. What did you think, Hayley?
Yeah, I liked it. I am a Werner Herzog fan, but mainly for his documentaries. I haven't seen too many of his films, and even the newer films. I was like, oh, I didn't know he did a film with Christian Bale, and he did a film with Nicole Kidman and Robert
Yeah.
Pattinson, and I had no idea. So that was kind of cool to see them, being interviewed, and kind of the mystique of Werner, and how he's turned into, he's doing voices in mainstream animated films and The Simpsons, and so it was kind of cool to look at all that, but then obviously talk about how he started, and how his earlier work, and kind of how he likes LA, where most people do not say they like LA. LA gets him where Germany did not. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's definitely for maybe more casual fans, or maybe fans that are, like I said, they're maybe newer to Herzog. But like you said, Angela, there's a lot of clips from Burden of Dreams. There's a lot of stuff that if you're a hardcore fan, a lot of that stuff you kind of know. But it's Werner Herzog, so I'll watch it no matter what.
Mm-hmm. No, and I found it interesting. I didn't know his brothers were so involved in his life. He's the youngest, but they're like one of his brothers is his producer on all of his films, and so there were some really nice little nuggets there. I have to just give a plug out for myself on this, and that so years ago, my husband and I had a band that we put together for just one album that we called Think Tayberry, and we put out an album, and one of the songs was about Werner Herzog, and the song's called Significant Bullet, and it's about the incident that happened to Werner Herzog where he was shot and then just basically said, oh, it was not a significant bullet. And so the chorus of the song goes, it was not a significant bullet. He said, it was not a significant bullet. Didn't even go into my head. It was not a significant bullet. So that's the chorus. And it's making fun of Werner Herzog, and it talks about him eating his own shoe and that other documentary. Because I've seen so much Herzog stuff. I think with the exception of some of his really, really hard to find shorts, I've seen all of his feature-length documentaries as well as his feature-length fictional films. And the interesting thing about his career that I think Wim Wenders, who's another great filmmaker who's interviewed in this movie, talks about is that he's really unusual in that he kind of easily kind of goes back and forth between fiction and documentary, which is pretty much not very many filmmakers you can say that about. Most people kind of stick to their genre, right? You don't see. I mean, Scorsese's made a few documentaries, mostly like music concert films, like The Last Waltz, but for the most part, filmmakers kind of stay in their lane, fiction or nonfiction. And he kind of has always, his whole career from the very beginning, glided effortlessly between the two.
Yeah.
Or they
and
make
still, yeah.
Or they make documentaries, like you said, Scorsese, sort of low hanging fruit. Like you're making a documentary on a band. It's not too hard to do. But Werner is making these documentaries about just like these random things of like, oh, I wanted to talk about like the intersection of humans and technology, and let's interview all these scientists and all this stuff. So, which is interesting because he had two documentaries that he made there, which I only saw one of them, Theater of Thought, which is along those same lines of just basically like what is consciousness and what does the future hold for humanity, and like I said, the so-called singularity of where humans and technology sort of merge and become one. What does that mean? And then he made
the best question: do fish dream?
Do fish dream? Yes.
Will we ever know? Did he answer the question?
Well, he asked a scientist, and the scientist didn't know either.
They
He's
didn't
like,
know.
we don't really know a lot about
They
fish.
don't know.
So.
They don't know.
Yeah.
And then he made one about the volcanologists, which you saw, Hayley, right?
Yeah. Can we talk about that now? I know it's not in the same order, but I think
No, that's fine. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay.
Let's talk about The Fire Within.
The Fire Within, a Requiem for Katia and Maurice Krafft, directed by Werner Herzog. So this was about the French volcanologists, married couple who were killed in an eruption in 1991. And basically Herzog took their footage. They had amazing footage, from tons of volcano eruptions, and did a story about it. And talked to people who knew them, and talked about kind of how their lives kind of started as scientists, and then kind of morphed more into, they were more on camera and they were basically being filmed. So there's another film about these volcanologists, which also came out, I think last year.
I saw that one.
I did not see that, so I can't compare it. Herzog did address that in before, which was the one thing I didn't like, because he said, oh, there's another movie about these by a female director. I can't remember her name. And I was like, really?
And it
So,
happens to be one of my favorite films of the year, Fire of
oh,
Love, the
okay.
other one. And so I
Okay, well,
saw
I
that
will
at
definitely have
Sundance,
to
and it was
watch
one of the
that.
best movies I saw at Sundance. So I'm kind of
Okay.
like, oh, another film about the same couple.
Well, he addressed that, and I don't know that film if it included the footage,
It had
because
a
I
lot
know
of footage.
there's hundreds of hours of footage. This was mainly just their footage, and there was definitely long scenes where it was just their footage set to music
Yeah,
because it
so
was so
Fire of
beautiful.
Love, what they did
So,
is they have no talking heads at all in the movie. It's just narrated by Miranda July, who I love, with this
oh
beautiful
yeah, I
narration
love
script,
Miranda
very
July.
poetic,
Yeah.
and she's just talking about their love and their lives, and then using all their archival footage. And what I loved about it, besides how crazy the footage is, because of course they got, as volcanologists, they got up super close to the volcanoes, is Miranda,
Mhm.
it gives it this almost non-documentary feel, and the way Miranda July does the reading, it makes it very poetic. So is
Oh,
Herzog the
okay.
narrator on his version?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. I could
Of
see why he'd
course.
be interested in this though, because it's exactly up his alley in terms of people being obsessed with something in nature that ends up being deadly, right? Like grizzly men, or people getting too close to the fire, so to speak, or too close to something that's dangerous and foreboding in nature, and then losing their lives over it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
I
that's
liked
very
it,
interesting.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's, they do, and he even said it, there's so many hours of footage that you can probably make tons of movies about this, because there's no way you're going to be able to show all the fantastic footage they had. So I would be curious to see if the two do kind of live on their
Yeah.
own
Well,
and
I'll
don't
watch this
interact
one
that much.
when it comes out. I'll watch Fire Within, then you watch Fire of Love, Haley, and we'll have to compare
Yeah.
notes, because since we
Yeah,
watched them in
definitely.
reverse order, because I am
Yeah.
curious, but then when I heard it, I was like, wow, another film in the same year, really, for contention, because this one, Fire of Love, came out at Sundance. So seems right
Mhm.
up Herzog's alley, though. So that sounds like
Yes.
that was a lot of fun. And then you saw him again at Toronto, I know, Ernie, so which is
Yeah,
kind
I
of
saw him.
hilarious.
Yeah, he actually had a panel with a couple of the people from Theater of Thought, sort of an extended panel there at Toronto. So, and they showed us some. I didn't see the films again. I just went to the panel, and
Mhm.
again they talked about humanity and sort of technology and sort of what the future holds, and of course, was stalking
More of
him.
those. They use those again.
Herzog, yeah, Herzog groupies, yeah. So,
So I'm curious, the two of you, before we move on to the rest of the documentaries, what's your favorite? I know Haley said you're into the documentary, so what's your favorite Herzog film?
Grizzly Man.
Grizzly Man?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Out of his documentaries, I definitely think that could be one of his best ones. Although I have and I'm sitting here looking down right now because I'm trying to remember the name of it, which you would think it's one of your favorites, Angela. You should know, but the one he did about Iceland. Which I'm forgetting the name of right now, Encounters at the End of
oh,
the World.
Counters
I
at End of the
also
World.
loved because it dealt with not only climate change, which of course is an important topic that more films should be about, but he dealt with also just the weirdness of the people that spent all their time in this place that's so remote, and kind of, again,
Mhm.
with that weirdness of the harshness of nature. I love Encounters at the End of the World as well, in
Yeah.
terms of his documentaries. And then for his fictional films, I mean, of course, it's hard to ever beat his classic ones like A Gear, The Wrath of God. But do you have a specific favorite Herzog movie, Ernie?
I mean, I do like Fitzcarraldo and Bird of Dreams, sort of that 1-2 combo
Hmm.
for documentaries. I want to make sure people know about Cave of Forgotten Dreams.
Oh, that's another great
If
one. Although I
if
got sick when I
people,
saw it in the theater.
yeah, if people, I don't know if there's a way to watch it in 3D at home. I don't know if 3D TVs can show that or whatever, but that was an amazing movie to see in theaters in 3D.
I
Um,
would say if you get motion sickness, though, like I do, it would not be the best one, because I saw it in the theater and I was like, those scenes where they're in the caves and he's like, the camera's going like this. And I was like, oh, I'm not feeling so good. But then when I rewatched it at home on a smaller screen, I did better with it.
would you be able to watch it on 3D at home or?
No, no, it wasn't in
Yeah.
3D.
Okay.
So, but it's still a great film to see even
It's
without
still a great
3D.
film. Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's made a lot of great films. So there's just, it just goes on and on. So anyway, so Haley, talk about some of the other documentaries you saw, because you saw quite a few here.
Yeah, so another great one is called Senior, and it's Robert Downey Jr.'s look at his dad, Robert Downey Sr., who was also a director. I didn't really know anything about his dad. So he made a bunch of movies that I don't think a lot of people have seen. I don't know if really any of them were mainstream. They were very
No, they're
odd and
not.
weird. And so the film was kind of him talking to his dad about the films while making a film And kind of how he got his dad to be involved was his dad was allowed to also make his own film about the film they were making, which we
Okay.
asked him if they were going to release his version, his dad's version. And I could see it being released maybe as like a a double DVD, like you see the original and then that is like an extra. I don't know if his film will ever be released, I don't know. But this was acquired by Netflix, I saw, so it's going to be coming out soon. And I don't know if it's ruining anything, but his dad has since died and dies in the film. So
While they were
obviously,
making it, yeah.
yeah, while they were making it. So it didn't start out as that, and then it kind of, obviously during COVID and everything that happened. So it definitely was a tearjerker, and kind of Robert Downey Jr. has had some ups and downs with his dad. So they talked about that, his drug problems, and his dad also, in the 60s and 70s, I think everybody was doing drugs, so they talked about that. And it was just really touching to learn more about his dad, and also Robert Downey Jr. learning more and kind of, trying to, I think everybody would probably like to do this with maybe a parent, because you always have questions and want to delve more into things. And sometimes the
Yeah.
parents don't want to do it, so.
Well, and I think it's also nice that he's using his career to bring, because Robert Downey Jr. is obviously much more famous than his father, but I've heard of his father. They actually have right now on Criterion Channel a collection of Robert Downey Sr.'s films that they've had up for a couple months, and I've watched a few of them. I haven't got through them. His stuff is very underground. They were like cult movies, really, more than anything.
Yeah.
Underground filmmaker, very experimental. So very interesting, very different from Robert Downey Jr.'s career. It does
Yes.
say that the director of this film was Chris Smith, but you said Robert Downey did it. But was Chris Smith
Well,
is the
no, I
guy who
mean,
did yeah.
Robert
He
Downey Jr. was
participated.
in the film a lot, and he was talking to his
Oh,
dad, and
okay,
he's obviously
participated.
very
Yeah.
involved in the film,
Yeah. Well, and Chris Smith did a film called American Movie that came out eons ago, which is one of my favorite documentaries, and it's about a very quirky individual. And so he seems to be drawn towards those kind of characters. But I think it's great if it gives more attention to Robert Downey Sr.'s career, because a lot of his films are really undiscovered, and they're probably not for everyone. It's not like the people that love Iron Man are going to be like, I'm going to go out and see these underground cult movies made by this weird guy, but it might bring, at least for people that do like underground cult movies that aren't familiar with Robert Downey Sr., maybe it'll bring some attention to his films.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit of John Waters,
Yeah.
where, John Waters was so weird and off the wall that definitely his movies are not for everybody. And I kind of felt like that's kind of how Robert Downey Sr., some of his movies, it just reminded me of
Right.
like a John Waters-esque type,
Right. With even lower
films.
budget, because I don't think, unlike John Waters, he ever got a studio to pick up any of his films. And so,
Yeah.
whereas John Waters at least had like Hairspray that got wide release, right? So, yeah. So that sounds really interesting. And Robert Downey Jr. was at the festival.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
there. I saw a Q&A with him, and, obviously that was really cool because he's such a big star, so it was interesting to see him, talk about the film, and obviously it's a labor of love. So.
Nice. Nice.
And
So,
did
yeah.
you see it, Ernie?
No, that's one of the
No?
ones
Okay.
that I couldn't get into my schedule, so
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that one sounds good. Okay, so you want to move on to the next doc?
Yeah. So the next movie was actually the last movie we saw at Telluride, called Good Night, Oppy. And this film, they have a park at Telluride, and they show movies every night. This beautiful screen. Everyone just, brings blankets and chairs and just sits out there. It's free, so anybody can watch them. And so usually it's really cold at Telluride, but this year it actually was pretty warm. And so the very last night, we all, got some pizza and grabbed our chairs and blankets and, just sat out there and watched this documentary. So it was really great. The film follows Opportunity, which is the Mars exploration rover, kind of dubbed Oppy by her creators and scientists at NASA. And Oppy was originally expected to live for only 90 days, but she ultimately explored Mars for nearly 15 years. So it was actually a pretty emotional film because they talked to the team that was behind her, and they obviously had an emotional reaction to everything, all the ups and downs that Oppy dealt with, and ultimately when she finally kind of signed off, because this was their life, they worked on her for so long. So I loved it. It's going to be a limited release by Amazon Studios on November 4th, and then it'll be streaming on Prime Video on November 23rd. I think it definitely, if you can, see it in the theater, because it really was a beautifully filmed, documentary. And, I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I thought it was the real easy connection is Wally. It's like, think of Wally as a documentary, and that's what this movie is. Because they basically personify this rover. I mean, it's already got a name, but they really give it a personality. And ILM does some special effects, and you sort of have the character of Opportunity sort of has like these diary entries, and sort of you're talking about her journey, and so you'll get a voiceover of like Soul 53, blah blah blah, and talking about, so they kind of personify the rover.
Yeah.
But there's some great footage from Mars. I think young and old will like this. Yeah, it was a good, fun little thing to watch, sort of at the end of the festival.
And it
Interesting.
also went into a lot of the women who were involved, and kind of how this got them interested in science and getting a job at NASA, and like this was their dream. And then they got to work on, with Oppy, because, she was around for way longer than anyone thought.
Yeah,
You keep saying we're talking about the robot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're
Oppy,
still
Oppy was a girl,
okay.
a woman.
Well, yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, because it was 15 years this rover was there, and it was when it launched, there was this young high school girl student who won a contest to like be in the mission control at the launch, and she was there like whatever, senior year of high school. And then 15 years later, she ends up being the one in charge of sort of Oppy the last days of the mission, the last couple years, and sort of winding down the mission. And so her career, from high school on, it's basically like with this rover. And so that was interesting how she was inspired, and then, like you said, ended up being in charge of Oppy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really cool.
Sounds interesting. So that one's going to be on Prime, so people can look forward to seeing that if they don't get to see it in the theater at the very least. So sounds like a lot of these have gotten, widespread distribution. So that's great. Documentaries are ones that often get picked up for streaming. That's a big difference between now and the old days when you had to wait for only theatrical, and then theaters, really limited what they would show in terms of which documentaries. So I feel like the breadth of documentaries that the general public can see now is much higher.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about your last one, Hayley?
Yeah. So the last one is actually the first one that we saw, Wildcat, directed by Melissa Lesh and Trevor Beck Frost. It's basically about this woman who owns a nonprofit, and they foster orphaned wildcats, and their whole goal is to release them into the wild. And so it's about her and her boyfriend, and her boyfriend is this young British soldier who was in the war in Afghanistan and is definitely struggling with depression, PTSD, a lot of problems. And so he finds himself out in the Amazon rainforest with her, and together they foster an ocelot, a baby ocelot. And he is kind of, animal therapy is helped by this ocelot. And so the story is obviously about the ocelot, but then also about the relationship, about him, mainly about him. And his struggles. And I really enjoyed it. It was definitely an emotional film. I also was crying throughout most of the film because there's touching scenes.
Oh, Hayley, you cried every movie.
Scenes. I know, I cry everywhere. But this one, it was really sad.
You look like you're getting choked up talking about it.
And, if you love cats of any type, you're going to love this film, because the ocelot is the cutest thing ever. And after the movie, you're going to want to go out, not that you can, and get an ocelot.
I should recommend say Wildcat should be in the wild. Please tell me though, Hayley, because I know you and I really disagreed about the I was about to say the dumb octopus movie. I'll just call it the octopus movie. You and I really disagreed about that movie. And so tell me it's not like that. Because when I read the description, I was like, man is healed by animal that could care less about his existence. But anyway, it's not like that movie, please, is it? Because that guy also got healed by the octopus.
No, but he did not get healed, which they talk about, so, okay. And no, I don't think it was the same. And that to me was more of this weird, like, the octopus was like, friends with him. And I didn't I didn't feel like it's the same. I guess kind of, I definitely see the similarities now, but I don't think it was the same type of film.
Okay, that's good.
And I
'Cause
know
that
that
movie
they
annoyed
also
me.
announced that Amazon acquired this film for $20 million. So the film will be
That's a
on
lot of
Amazon.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they must think it's a big Oscar contender, or else they wouldn't be putting that kind of money behind it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I liked it. I mean,
And you didn't like Octopus either, like me,
oh,
right?
oh, I hated that movie.
Okay,
That
so
was
this one I'm getting a better sense. Yeah, because I was like, okay,
that was a travesty. Oh my God,
okay.
that had no business winning anything other than worst exploitation of octopus. I don't know. I had some issues with the film. Overall, I did like the film, and yeah, it does make you want to train and raise ocelots and foster them. It's interesting that so her organization, this no one's ever done what she did. I mean, no one ever thought that you could do that. A human could help, foster and rehabilitate these wildcats. No, it's never been done before, and there's no template of how it can be done, and they're not sure if it can be done. And so they were able to do it. I can't remember what circumstances this young ocelot was in, but if they didn't do what they did, it would have died. A lot of things they deal with are poachers and hunters and things like that. So without them doing this, these creatures would die. And so it is remarkable. Yeah, this guy's going through PTSD, and sort of he finds a purpose and a meaning to his life by helping this young ocelot. And it's not as corny or cheesy as a
Right.
Hollywood movie would make it sound.
And animals can provide people therapy. They've actually found this in like prison programs and things too. So it's
Yeah.
not that it's totally unreal. It's just when you try to humanize or put, like they did with the octopus, put human like features on it,
Oh
like
yeah.
it's thinking this or feeling that always
Yeah.
annoys me. It's
No,
like,
no, no.
its own animal.
This doesn't go down that road at all. I did feel a little bit of like, I didn't know we're not gonna have enough time to talk about all of this, but he was not in a place. I don't know. I feel like he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing. It was,
There's some complications.
there's a lot of complications to
Yeah.
what he was doing, and I felt like maybe the girlfriend was exploiting him in some ways, but I know he agreed to be in the movie, and he agreed to be part of this, so it all worked out, and it's all part of the process. It's all part of the healing process. But
yeah, well, coming soon to a streamer service near you. Hayley and Ernie, it's been so fantastic to have you both on the show to talk about the film festival together. Someday, maybe I'll be able to join you. We can review all the Telluride movies together. Who knows?
Yes.
Stranger things have happened, I suppose. So thank you again. As always, this is Real Film Snobs. Thank you so much. Have a great day and great movies. Bye-bye.
Bye.